down to the First Street overpass in Vancouver and jumped off the bridge. The hallucinations and the feeling of mania and the euphoria made me feel very special. Well, I was born in Prince George, in the Cariboo. And then when I was 2 years old, my father and my mother and all his kids moved to West Vancouver. My earliest memories are kind of my parents fighting because they didn't like each other and later got divorced. And my mother bought a house in Surrey for all us kids and supported us on a teacher's salary for a couple of years until she met my stepfather. And he came into our life. He's a wonderful man, very compassionate, very loving, and we loved him our whole lives. My mother and stepfather were very loving, and so was my natural father. My natural father got full visitation rights to the kids, so we'd see him every week, every weekend. He was with us for the whole weekend. And then later in life, when we moved out north, my brother and I would come to see him on spring break and Christmas, live with him in Vancouver and visit with him all of that time. So he was very, very supportive, even though my mother and him hated each other, and they did until they died. But they still, he still was very, very loving and a very, very, very supportive father. The nicest part, I think, about my childhood was school. I really enjoyed school. I enjoyed elementary school. I succeeded wildly. I got straight A's all the way through elementary school. And then when I was in grade 7, my dad and my stepdad and my mother, we moved to the Cariboo, way out in the hinterland. So this was 25 miles from the nearest town, which was only 1,200 people in the town as well. So way out in the boondocks. Our nearest neighbors were miles and miles away. We went to a stretch of land, a beautiful piece of land. We had a half a mile of lake shore on a private lake, and the lake was called Lonely Lake, and it's just beautiful, exquisite nature. So I lived there throughout my high school years on the farm. High school, I sort of hung out with the dopers. I was one of them. We all smoked marijuana, and it wasn't good for me. It scared me, even back then. To be high, it wasn't a comfortable feeling. I didn't feel good about it. Like when I in Vancouver, later on when I was with the MPA, it was peer pressure. They were all smoking marijuana. I was smoking marijuana. I just wanted to fit in. I wanted to be part of the crowd, not realizing it wasn't the right crowd, at the time. After that, I went to university and went to UBC, studying Arts 1 with the thought of becoming an English teacher. And that went well, except it was like a continuation from high school. I did not take a break between high school and university, which I should have done. In hindsight, I would say, yeah, I'm going to take a year off to work before I go to UBC. But I didn't. I went straight in. My dad paid for everything, my tuition, my dormitory, everything. And of course, I dropped out after 3 or 4 months because I just thought it was a big party and I didn't study at all. I got my first job selling magazines for Maclean Hunter, which is Maclean's magazine and Chatelaine magazine. So what happened was we'd take around these slips of paper which had all these magazines listed on them, and we'd give them to people. We knock on their doors, private doors. We just said that you get 7 magazines for 95 cents a week for 60 months with no price increase. So that was the selling point that got over the $250 5-year contract. So anyway, I did that for a while, and I was good at it for part of it. I had some good days and sold lots of magazines, all kinds of adventures on the road, whether it's from here to Winnipeg, including Calgary and Swift Current and Regina and Saskatoon, living there for odd times and just having a ball on the road, but they're not always doing so well either. If you didn't sell any magazines, you didn't eat because no one else could feed you. You didn't make any money, so you had to go hungry. So I did a couple times, which wasn't ideal for me because I had the genetic predisposition of schizophrenia from my grandfather. So I didn't realize at that time in my life that I should have stayed away from high stress jobs and stayed away from marijuana because those were triggering. So anyway, I wasn't really believing in my job at all. It was very stressful. I didn't feel comfortable doing it. And it was then I had my first psychotic break when I was on the job in Winnipeg. So it was a sunny day. It was blinding sunshine. There was snow on the ground. There was white snow everywhere. And myself and another coworker were working in this apartment building, knocking on doors and selling our magazines. There was a bird that was trapped inside the apartment building. It was trapped in there, and it couldn't get out. It was trying to fly out, it was hitting the glass and so on. And so together, we opened the door and let the bird out. When I let the bird out, I walked outside and something just hit me and I snapped. It was too intense. I felt a rush of emotion and energy, and I started to hallucinate, basically, at that time, visually. Everything was too bright, it was blinding, so I was just hallucinating wildly. It was just too much. From then I went back to Vancouver and carried on with that early part of my psychosis, which I was not diagnosed for quite a while. It was not until a year or two later when they diagnosed me finally. And of course the hallucinations came, the delusions came as my mind was trying to explain the experience that I was having and come up with something rational, like why do you see light? Why do you see light? Because that was my hallucination, light. Later I had dark hallucinations as well, but that's a different story. But in the early days, it was all just light, and too much light. And my mind couldn't explain it. I had to come up with a rational explanation, and so I turned to God, I turned to religion. The hallucinations and the feeling of mania and the euphoria made me feel very special, as though I was this chosen one of God. This is what I felt like, I was a chosen one of God, with these special abilities, powers, that kind of thing, which is, that's the way my psychosis presented. I mentioned the euphoria. I felt a lot of that, but I also felt the fear. And when the euphoria calmed down, the fear took over. And at that time, the hallucinations changed. I was seeing dark things, darkness, dark figures, evil figures, if you will, or that I interpreted as being evil. It was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. My original diagnosis was paranoid schizophrenia, so I came into hospital with those fears, and they knew that. And it's very scary, very scary. Imagine being in a horror movie and being stuck to your chair and not being able to leave the movie. You can't leave. You have to watch it again and again and again, and just be terrified each time. So it was difficult to get through. I remember being at UBC, waking up, and I looked up, and there's my whole family. My two sisters, one brother, my father, my stepfather, and my mother, all over my bed, saying, "We love you, we support you," and so on. So I felt okay, and I knew that from that point on in my journey, that I would have my family support, and they did for years and years, unwavering support. Throughout my history of having schizophrenia, I went through many different medications. They couldn't find anything that worked with me, so I was on a lot of the early ones like chlorpromazine and stelazine and Haldol, the old medications. I was also on injectable medications like fluantixol and fluanxol. I would go off my medication, so I would throw it away and have breakdowns again. I was in this one boarding home, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was a provincial government boarding home. And they were giving me Haldol at the time. Now, Haldol is an older drug, which is rarely used today. But back then, I was getting a lot of Haldol. And it really numbed you. It tranquilized you to the point where you're almost a zombie. And for me, I got this weight on my head from it. I had this weight on my head, and I couldn't get rid of it. It was terrible. And so I took matters into my own hands. I went down to the First Street overpass in Vancouver and jumped off the bridge. And I hit pavement from about 30 feet and wrecked my back and my feet. They were all broken up. And I was in pediatric hospital for 6 months, and then 6 months in the psychiatric ward after that, when I told the doctor that demons made me do it. So that was that part of my psychosis. I went through a whole series of different experiences with medications. Some would be beneficial, and I'd be relatively stable, and I could live on my own, and so on. Other times they would not be stable. I would have to change them. I'd try something else. I had doctors try me probably on a dozen different medications before they found the right combination. So even when I was starting to recover completely, it still wasn't right. There's still fine-tuning. I did fine-tuning 2 years ago, so still more fine-tuning, and I'll be doing that for the rest of my life. But then early on, my realization was more of a sense of resignation as well, that yes, this was me. I was a man with schizophrenia, and I had to accept that. And I had to accept that about myself, which wasn't easy. It's something that nobody wants to be. It's not a job title. It's not a profession. It's more of a label, and people don't like labels because of stigma and all the rest of it. So I had to see myself that way, that I am a human being with schizophrenia, and I had to live that way. So that was challenging. That was challenging for sure. After that, I remember getting out of hospital and then going and getting my own place and living more independently. And I did that for a while, where I would last for a while, and then I would break down. And it wasn't until my mid-40s that I really accepted medication as an option if I was given a choice. Back in my 20s, I didn't have that choice. I had to take meds. My dad, my natural father, was a medical librarian. So he knew medicine very well and educated me. And I finally realized, yes, I need this treatment. I need these drugs. At that point, I started to improve gradually. It wasn't like a light bulb moment. I had been in and out of hospital so many times and had experienced so much pain that I thought, this is the only way. This has got to work. And it was really the love I had from my family too was a big motivator. I mean, they didn't want to see me suffer or go back to hospital or anything like that. So, I think it was more, I didn't really do it for myself at the time. I thought, well, I'm just gonna make everybody happy, And then of course it was better. And then of course by then the atypical medication had come out. So I was on different meds. So the medication had fewer side effects, and that made it easier, to take. This is the award I won in 2005 from the Coast Foundation in Vancouver, or Coast Health. It was called The Courage to Come Back. I had no idea I was going to win the award, none whatsoever. I didn't even know that my mother had entered me in the contest, right? So she wrote them, and this is province-wide. So it's a province-wide, a lot of candidates. So she wrote them, and then one day I got a call, and the fellow on the phone said, "What are you doing on April 15th?" And I said, "What does it mean?" He said, "Oh, you're invited to Vancouver, you won the award," and all this kind of thing. So it was quite surprising. Yeah, I really was honored at that time. So life today. So my life today is wonderful. I have a wonderful, wonderful life. I live in a very nice apartment, and I have a great job. I enjoy my work at Peer Support immensely. I'm enthusiastic about going to work every day. I work with some wonderful clinicians in Island Health and some wonderful people at CMHA. Really enjoy my work with MHRP. I like to contribute as much as I can. I enjoy a warm and loving relationship with my family, with my two dear sisters, who are both older than me, who both live here in Nanaimo. They're both retired, but we spend lots of time together and have lots of fun. They're just wonderful, wonderful people. I didn't know them throughout my illness time. I really didn't appreciate them that much. But now I know them as the dear people that they are. And my loving brother, he just visited recently, so I was able to catch up with him. And we were very, very close as well, even though we don't see a lot of each other due to distance, you know. My parents are gone. My natural father died 20 years ago. My stepfather died 10 years ago, and my mother died 7 years ago. So they're gone now, but fondly remembered by all of us.